Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CTN webinar. The topic for today's discussion is empowering high-quality customer experience with data and analytics. And thanks to Luminor, who have made this webinar possible. My name is Sanju Gaul. I will be your host and moderator for this webinar. Now, quick housekeeping. Please keep your microphones muted currently to help minimize any background noise. Whosoever is speaking, when they're not speaking, that's what they should do. And that's for panelists, and sometimes even the attendees would also be unmuted to provide their inputs. And then at the end of the webinar, since we will try to all work hard to make this valuable, please share your experience by completing the feedback form, which will pop up. Now, before we get started on the beautiful journey of how you create customer experience using the data and analytics, let me ask a very simple question. By show of hands, how many of you like ice cream? All right, my God, I got almost everybody saying I like ice cream. All right, awesome. So now the second question I'll try to connect the dots. So imagine if you had your favorite customer experience and it was supposed to be mapped to your favorite ice cream flavor, or it was to be seen as an ice cream flavor. Which flavor would you pick and why? Just share with us on chat. So that'll help. And then that is what we would like to talk about. And while you're sharing your insight, I'll tell you why am I even saying this. Because see, like with ice cream flavors, each of us as customers have our own preferences when it comes to our experiences. So how does one understand that you as a customer needs to be offered that unique experience or that key ingredient or set of ingredients which will make that experience most unique and enjoyable? Well, you can use data and analytics to be able to do some churning and figure that out. But then, is that enough? After you having that data and or insights pulled out, what do you do with it? How do you get your people, process, policy, pocketbook, budget, culture, leadership, and tech all come together to deliver that experience? And frankly, the way we have heard and all seen, customer experience is a living organism, and you cannot claim that today you gave an amazing experience, tomorrow is going to be the same. So what do you do to come as close to giving a good, consistent experience, showing them a movie of good experience versus a snapshot, a wow, and then a dud? That's not what is called good customer experience. But how do you do that? How do you keep it consistent? How do you use data and analytics? And how do you empower this whole journey of customer experience using data and analytics and many other elements that I spoke about? Well, I have 3 ice cream artisans with you. Okay. They have got a great capability, great background, who are going to help discuss. And frankly, we will also be inviting a lot of people from the audience members to join in. So I have Abhi Seth, who is the Chief Data Officer with TE Connectivity. Hey, Abhi, how are you? Awesome. And we have Shawnna DelHierro, Chief Information Technology Officer with Sportsman Warehouse. Hey, Shawnna, how's life?
Hi there. Very well. Thank you for having me today.
And we have Sha Edathumparampil, who's the VP of Digital Tech and Chief Data Officer with Baptist Health South Florida. How are you, Sha?
Very good. Great to be here, Sanjay.
Great. So what we will do is, of course, as a format, what we're going to start doing is going to start with a challenge inventory. Let me explain what that is. Our goal is to have the panelists and also the audience members share their top challenge. You may have many, but just your top challenge which holds you back from delivering amazing customer experience and consistent one while leveraging data and analytics and even other elements. So we will start with that. And once we have spoken about that set of challenges, then we will not talk challenges anymore. We will switch to the brainstorming and solutioning mode to see what has been done to solve those problems that are considered to be the top challenges by each person who reports it. And then what is making it still a problem. And if that's a snag that they're hitting, we got to all step up and share our suggestions to help move forward in solving that problem a little more. So if this is going to be a great format for us to create some actionable insights and meaningful takeaways, my request will be for all of us, our panelists and the audience members, to please actively engage. Now, with that said, let's get started. So Shawnna, why not we start with you? Give us a quick background about yourself and your organization so people understand the context, and then share your top challenge, which is giving you the most heartburn in the context I just explained.
Sure. So hello, everyone. Again, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to share a bit of what is going on in my world. So as mentioned, I'm with Sportsman's Warehouse. Sportsman's Warehouse is an outdoor retailer. We focus on hunt and camp outdoor activities, fish, hike, etc. We have 136 retail stores across the U.S. and growing. Excited that we have a lot of challenges. I think for all of us, I think everyone on the call would agree that, some of that breeds job security and some of it's just exciting to see times changing. I think for Sportsman's, having been an organization that has grown pretty quickly, and then, lived through COVID, and then it's been kind of a soft year in retail. I think, much like a number of others, we have this goodness of data, but it's pocketed, and we have where it sits, whether it's in our retail store or it's in, an e-com database, or it's in some loyalty or some warranty information. But bringing those together, I think, is probably one of our greatest opportunities and challenges. And with that, there's also, the need to further explore and vet out where we've got some tech debt and some back office systems that haven't been given the time, resources, or attention to really bring them the course of where we need to be today. So addressing those things, getting the first things first, lined out in an order, and really seeking to understand what it is that our customer expects of us, and how we can best serve them by aggregating their data effectively and having that at a point where we can be good stewards and good customer service agents.
Sha, what's your, give us your background, of course, and love to hear about your top challenge.
Once again, thank you. It's wonderful to be here and to meet you all. I have Sha Edathumparampil. I work for Baptist Health, which is a hospital system, healthcare system in South Florida. And we operate about 11 hospitals and well above 100 urgent care locations and so on. From a challenge perspective, taking a step back, today's consumer is really spoiled. If you look at the ecosystem, there are some truly great consumer experiences out there. Amazon, Apple, you can name quite a few of these. But when you think about healthcare or your last doctor visit, chances are that experience does not align with the experience that you have been elsewhere in other industries, such as some of the names that I mentioned. And there are lots of reasons for it, but a big part of it is the lack of focus and investment perhaps into building the capabilities. Technology and digital is one part of it, but just being able to focus on consumer experience and building the right level of right solutions and features for them, I think has been a challenge for us. Now, underlying that is obviously needing the right infrastructure, processes, practices, strategy, leadership, funding, all of that. Specifically from a data perspective, healthcare tends to suffer from, and this is true for practically every system out there, suffer from not having the right data culture, which is for people making decisions based on opinions and as opposed to data. And they've done that for decades and decades. So it's a hard sort of a shift, if you will, in mindset to move from that to being data focused. So focusing on being consumer focused and having a data oriented culture and everything that is necessary to build that. I think those are sort of the challenges that I see in healthcare today.
Abhi?
Hey, thank you for having me here, Sanjog, and really happy to be able to speak today on this topic. My name is Abhi Seth, and I am the Chief Data Officer for TE Connectivity. TE is a $16 billion company, global company. We serve across many different industries, all the way from automotive to sensors to appliances. A TE sensor, you can find even all the way from a coffee maker to, the gym, a telescope that went up, and all kinds of electric vehicles. So we are everywhere. And as a matter of fact, we think as we look at the diversity of industries we serve, and we are serving multi-billion-dollar customers, and then we are working with DIY individual startups that are actually trying to get some of these electronic components and build the next new product, next Apple Watch or next iPhone or whatever that might be, right? And how do we make sure that we are able to partner with them and understand their very different needs in terms of the skill at which they need the product, the innovation that they need, the application, really truly a very different variety of application that they need. And it's really understanding that and being able to respond to that. Plus the other interesting thing we do is we have a lot of direct customers, and then we sell directly to customers and through distribution. And that makes it even more difficult for us to, how do we have different layers of customer interfaces, I would say. So in terms of the biggest challenges, I think, I would say the big challenge for us is really getting into that holistic record of the customer, right? I think being able to talk about, I think Shawnna mentioned, some of the technology debt side. I think we are getting into, it's kind of an interesting time for everybody in data and digital, because we are all starting with, everybody has an Oracle on a SQL server somewhere. And, a lot of the stuff still happening on Excel. And then we are getting into generative AI. Everybody wants to talk to a chatbot and get all the insights on their fingertips. And I think it's really about trying to educate, the masses that, hey, you can have generative AI, but if you don't fix your data foundation, you might get 5 different answers to the same question, right? And it's really more and more important, because if we want it or not, we get pushed into this, not just predictive, but generative AI space. And if we, at some point, I feel like, the time to fix the data and the stuff we've been talking about for the last 10 years, it's going to be behind us, right? I think it's time to move on to the next generation of AI. And for that, we really do need to address the technology debt. The other aspect I would say is really, I think there is a lack of understanding. I think, Sha, you mentioned data culture in medical, and I understand that. But there is a lack of understanding who owns the data. I think everybody wants to use the data, but I think very few people, it's like data in environment. I kind of feel like the same thing. Everybody wants us to be green and everything to be clean. Who owns the responsibility to, pick up the mess, right? And understand what their contribution is in sustainability. Are you throwing the right box, the recycle bin, or not? And I think that's kind of where it starts, is educating, making sure that not just the technology side of the data foundation, but also the process side and the people side is really addressed and matured. And I think the good news there is, I think, I can tell you about PE. I've been here 3.5 years, and the amount of momentum and pull around data has exponentially changed, and the amount of awareness in the top business leaders and functional leaders understanding of why data is really the root cause that we must invest in fixing it is also changing rapidly.
Thank you so much. Other panelists have spoken about their respective challenges and given a background, but I would love for audience members who would like to also share their top challenges. Please raise your hand so I can invite you to talk and share about your challenges first. And as you share those challenges, also type in the Q&A box so that we also have a record of what your top challenges are. So who would like to volunteer from the audience members who have top challenges and they would like to articulate? All right. I'm going to have Shawnna DelHierro. So Shawnna, you are unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hey, so my name is Shravan, and I'm the director working in Neiman Marcus. For those of you who don't know much, it is a luxury retailer company that has over $3 billion revenue, operating income and revenue. And so one of the things where I kind of manage is customer data platforms, building a golden record. We were talking about, different people talking about some of the, disparate systems and those systems managing their own data. And we are kind of focusing on building the centralized solution for all the customer data that is coming through the different source system. And at the same time, I'm kind of focusing on building a customer 360 view, essentially anything and everything that we need to know about the customer. And the third part of that is leveraging the data analytics and insight to power customer client engagements. So that is something, we've been trying to do that through the personalization. And we are using a lot of those AI, ML, some algorithms to kind of power some of the recommendations. But one of the challenge where, having, trouble is how to scale the personalization, how to kind of connect with the customers seamlessly across channels and at a faster pace. So again, if you guys look into, the experiences, there are different teams kind of work together to kind of make them happen. We have front-end teams, we have, some of the middleware teams, and then the back-end teams. So we're kind of having, the best challenges. How can I, build a scalable personalization solution that could be expanded to any channels? It could be call center, it could be, e-commerce site, or it could be, mobile apps, or it could be email, whatever. I want to make sure that we are kind of looking at leveraging the data analytics and insight to kind of power those seamless experiences of clients at a much faster fashion in a larger scale. I think that's where, I'd like to kind of hear some thoughts in terms of how that is something, if you guys have done anything like this, I'd like to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
So we will talk about, thank you so much for sharing the challenge. And Shravan, do us a favor, put your actual challenge on the chat, like the Q&A. So we'll have a log of that. And of course, we'll come to it when we are going to go through the solutioning. Cynthia, would love to have you share your thoughts.
Sure. Thank you very much. I am a chief data officer at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I'm tasked with implementing a completely new, fully integrated data and analytics system. As soon as I endeavored on that path, clearly it became a pretty significant task. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've been in supply chain, I've been in manufacturing, I've been in financials, and built analytic systems that support that activity, customer base, that kind of thing. In higher ed, it's a very different beast. It's a different beast because if you're in a university with multiple colleges, you'll generally find that each of the colleges operate independently. So unlike a major corporation or let's say, what was it? Sportsman's, was that Paradise? All of the stores are pretty much the same. In a college, they all run differently. And so one of the challenges that we've had, or that I'm facing right now, is, to the point made earlier, truly not only identifying who owns the data, but more importantly, who's willing to step up and maintain that data, which is the point that was recently made. We have that issue where today, and it's been the culture for many, many years, that IT takes care of everything. And that's where the solution that we endeavor to finally select needs to be as much focused on self-service as it is on ensuring that we have the proper controls in place behind the scenes and the data governance side. Just getting the buy-in that we had to go in that direction has taken, I'll say, 2 years, just to get the funding and the budgeting and move forward. So my quandary, if you will, is that while we're aware that there are data quality issues, the actual action of having or convincing certain leadership streams to understand that not only do they own the data, but they also are responsible for assisting in improving and measuring the data quality. And it's that separation of IT can give everything that you need in terms of information, but we cannot make your decisions for you. And I think we all have that challenge where it depends on how far a customer wants us to go versus how far we really should go. So.
All right, great. So we also have Rajit Varathan, who actually shared it over chat. So he said that his challenge is that suppliers have to service multiple customers who are on different journeys on how they can accept data from suppliers. That is data entry in customer portals to API, and how to influence customers to become more advanced in their journey or come up with a solution that allows supplier to service all methods of product exchange. All right. Now with that, I'm going to take one last challenge from Pramod. Pramod, you've been unmuted. Please go ahead and share your challenge.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon, team. My name is Pramod Pillai. I am a director, IT director with the professional services firm called InfoVision. And my question, or some of the challenges that when we go to some of these data implementations are around data duplicate, right? So whether in retail, you have like customer data duplicate, and if it is commercial real estate, you have properties, duplicate properties. And over a period of time, 15, 20 years, there is a lot of the duplicate data. And it's one of the challenges that I've been thinking about, like how do we effectively solve for this? And of course, we use the different algorithms we can use. There's AI as well, but I'm very curious to understand from this team over here, like, do you have any experience in I know it comes down to data quality. Like, do you have any experience in data duplication? What has worked well for you in your scenario? I would love to hear from you.
All right, good. Thank you so much. These were a lovely set of challenges. So now coming back, Shawnna, to you, well, let's go to your own challenge. And like to very quickly have you share what specific things that you've tried to do, given that it's your top challenge. So I'm sure you put time, energy, dollars towards it. What all did you try, and what worked, what did not work? And where are you truly stuck?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for those who also shared, as our attendees today. I think it's interesting to hear the different perspectives and different challenges that exist. Where I would, kind of share a bit more is I started here with Sportsman's at Black Friday. So at a peak period of time, it is absolutely, our highest sales volume and our highest store traffic, which coincidentally now has resolved to be our highest e-commerce traffic as well. So, as I look at, coming in and, one of the reasons that, I came here was, to really kind of lead a transformation journey and to take us from where we've been and some data and legacy systems and processes, or the lack thereof, and some absence of rigor and operational structure, to get us to a point where we had a more unified position in how we move forward in meeting the customer where they are. I think Sha had a great, point earlier as we were talking. We have a little bit of spoiling of our customers that, we are trying to be the one size fits all. And I think that while that is great by intent, I think it can become incredibly challenging and can become a blocker to even good, let alone great. So for us, as I look at our data landscape, look at our organization and what we have as our enterprise level goals, when we talk about one specifically, around grow omnichannel, well, what are the challenges that we have, and what are the issues that arise from a data and analytics perspective? Again, going back to the disparate systems, but I think it also comes back to not having a clear measure or clear method for how we collectively as an organization want to move forward. I appreciate one of the comments earlier about, all of these different business models within a higher education model. I mean, there's a different approach, there's a different methodology, and perhaps even a different need. And I think for us, there's some of that in the retail space. I think being able to operate despite weather, being able to operate despite other macroeconomic impact or factors, getting to the basics of everyone organizationally, understanding that this is what our roadmap is. Socializing that, giving others an opportunity to weigh in so they can more effectively buy in to what we feel as though are the pressing needs from a technology standpoint, but also how do we then better expose that data more real time so that they understand exactly what's happening, whether it's in the customer seat, whether it's in the associate seat in the retail frontline area, or whether it is within, the more corporate back office system and structure. So I think for us, it was just kind of taking that first step first. And what is it that we can do to present a unified platform and a source of truth for data to be visible? And then really kind of surveying and scouring the landscape to say what data is relevant to you, what helps you to be a driver of your business vertical. And then how can we, from a technology standpoint, be more effective in the way that we stand up a system or platform or an availability, whether it is leveraging an AI solution or a legacy API call for just the data availability. But getting there to where our entire enterprise understands what we're seeking to achieve and is aligned on what that method is going to be, so that we can have something that's effectively measured.
So is there a snag you're hitting, or would you say that if you kept doing this and if you did the same webinar a year from now, you'll say, okay, we are singing Kumbaya, everything is awesome?
I would love to say that in a year from now, that would be the case. I think every day there's a new, there's something that comes about that's new in the way of, opportunity. So I don't think that journey is ever quite finished or complete. I think it's an ongoing evolution. What I would like to say is that if we stay the course with the consistency in the model that we've all aligned to, my hope would be that we could have good demonstration of progress. And that we're putting data in the hands of those that can use it to drive us to be better. I think historically, if we were to look back 10, 15, 20 years, there was this idea, especially, if I were just to look at where I sit in retail or even where I came from in healthcare, we have these drivers that sit in, a big high rise somewhere. And then we have these operators that are expected just to go and to do. And I very much don't believe that to be the case. I think that we have to engage people end to end throughout our organization, whether it means that you sit in payroll or you sit in distribution or you do sit in the retail space or technology, to understand how they are contributing to the overall bottom line, but more importantly, and the efficacy of relationship that we're driving with that customer that keeps them coming back. And so I think that data is critical to that, and being able to have that in their hands. Again, we have systems that are dated. I can't have them hitting those systems to get real-time information, nor do I want them to. I want to give them the data that empowers them. So I believe that, yes, we're on the right path forward. I think that there are a lot of things that we will mature and that we will shore up as we go. But I definitely think getting, you've got to start somewhere. So it's drawing that line in the sand to say, this is the way that we're going to go forward. Does everyone agree? And then pushing ahead, recognizing that you're going to have some bumps in the road, but staying the course of that without allowing for that to be the big blocker that prohibits you from progress.
So Sha, your journey, of course, somewhat similar and or different flavors, but I know there is always complexity. It's always like I use two analogies. One is changing tire of a moving car or building the plane while you're flying it. Which one is more appropriate for you?
I think both to some extent, because there is obviously the industry transforming as we are doing it, plus we are transforming within it ourselves. So that brings up some very interesting dynamics.
So when you shared your challenge and where you're stuck or not stuck, but it's still a journey, how would you define it? Is it a leave it to God problem or something you can do something about?
Well, that certainly is not. So I have a dual role. I'm responsible for building out digital consumer capabilities, and I'm also the chief data officer. So in many ways, some of my teams are consumers of the data products that the other parts of the organization builds or provides. And I talked earlier about one of the challenges being the culture of data, right? So that really comes from, in my mind, roughly three things. The lack of a data-oriented culture in an organization comes from, first of all, access to data, right? Are you able to easily get to your data? Second, trust in data, right? Is this good quality data? And then number three, the usability of that data. So if you have to spend hours or call people to understand the data, then there's a problem. So and this is true for most industries, but others may have had a head start compared to healthcare in terms of solving some of these things. So we set out from a data strategy perspective to address those things. There is obviously a technology element that supports all three of those, which is to have the right technology platform, which is scalable and reliable and performant and has the ability to plug and play all of these new capabilities as and when those become available, everything from generative AI now to other types of analytics before. So we set out to address those three challenges, or broke the overall challenge down to those three and set out to address this. One was we started building this data platform that has, which is obviously new technology, cloud-based. It lets people get to the data much more easily, in the sense that there are no restrictions in terms of how many users can connect to. So those trivial things were addressed and taken out of the way. The other part of access is even knowing where your data is, right? So we implemented things like data catalog. That makes it easier for folks, anyone within the company, to be able to understand what assets, whether it is just data sets or existing dashboards or workbooks and reports and so on and so forth. So a catalog. So between the platform capabilities and the catalog, we are on the way we've started a well into our journey to address the access issue. The second is the trust aspect. So you have to have quality controls implemented as part of your technology platform and framework as and when the data comes in. So you have the ability to understand what the issues are and quickly address those. Quickly may not be immediate, but at least knowing where your issues are gives you the ability to go back and address those. So we have automated pipelines, monitoring, alerting with the right users or user representatives getting involved early on in the cycle, and then having a process to remedy it relatively quickly. So that's the trust aspect of it. There's also another factor, which obviously we cannot overstate the importance of security, data security. So you have to overlay that aspect also into the trust aspect. But I think all said and done, the thing that makes the biggest those two items of foundation, but the one that makes the most more difference in terms of helping people use data, whether it is the consumer or its internal stakeholder, is how quickly or how usable is these systems that you have. For instance, you can have a report that has 100,000 cells, or an Excel file that has 100,000 cells, or you can visualize the data in a way that is intuitively easy for folks to understand, whoever is looking at the data, or the point of use of that data, right? So for instance, if you, let's say, a physician in our environment who uses electronic health record system essentially all day long, if that person then has to switch context and go to a separate reporting system or a dashboarding system, then that causes friction, and it prevents or it reduces the level of adoption that you could otherwise achieve. So that last mile of usage or usability for users is critical. We are addressing that by making sure that the data that is trusted and easy to access and so on, but it is also presented in a way that is closest to the point of use. So those are some of the things that we're doing now. Those are still foundational. You also have to change the mindset and the culture. You really have to get them excited about the future. What can you do with all this in place? Which is where taking these relatively small but meaningful bets around using new technology, whether it is, generative AI is all the rage now, but there are things that you can do, partnering with willing and able stakeholders within the organization to prove some of these new and advanced uses of data and show them the benefits in a highly quantified kind of a way. It could be that you reduce the amount of hours someone had to spend filling documentation, or the amount of time a patient had to wait to get in. We have things like, from a consumer experience perspective, we've plugged data all the way in to show wait times, forecasted and current wait times at our urgent care centers. So that aspect of usability, making it really, really easy to consume the data, I think is a big part of our effort. And it's so far, it's been going really well. We've been on this journey for almost 2 years now. We have a number of capabilities that are out in the market through digital channels as to consumers, as well as to internal stakeholders. It seems to be going well.
Awesome. Abhi?
I would say, I think, to your point, I think a mini kumbaya every day is kind of the goal, right? I think you can't have one big one and wait for 5 years, right? I think that's the key. Some of the challenges I outlined, I think, is really more focused on technology depth and data. But again, as I said earlier, I think our customers are not waiting for us for 2 years to go fix the data and then come back and get the experience. They're all, to Sha's point, getting spoiled one way or the other. and they want, they expect that, and especially in the digital age. So some of the things, and I've been here 3.5 years, so some of the key things we have tackled early on is really, simplifying our architecture. I think as we look at technology that we all talked about it, I think it's really about thinking enterprise architecture end to end, and then thinking the flow of data from the beginning to the consumption point, either it's for the internal stakeholder or for the customer trying to figure out what is your order, status or my delivery date is, right? And how do you make it seamless, and thinking about, your systems like SAP, a lot of people are going from SAP, from PI2 to S4, everybody's going through that journey as we speak. So how do we really use that as an advantage to simplify? Because SAP is such a big element in all of our data journeys that if we, this is kind of once in a lifetime golden opportunity to address a lot of those issues as we go do our SAP upgrades. But then at the same time, there is other operational systems. So the challenge with PE was really more around, we have a lot of analytics teams across 10 business units. Everybody's downloading data from SAP or different core data publication systems, doing their own analysis, taking them to the business leaders, and then suddenly the data doesn't match, right? And then you have this, I don't know which number is right, and then you get into that debate. So in 3 years, we've kind of reduced a lot of that by consolidating most of that data into a single cloud platform. So we launched our cloud platform around 18 months ago, right? And then we have actually tracked, and we weren't sure if this is the right way to go, but we knew this is the right thing to do. So we consolidated, brought in, and created a governance team, right? So similar to what Sha was talking about, really, I think having around 40,000 data elements, catalog, data definitions put in place, master golden records for customer. And again, it's not holistic, and we're not there yet. This is not, again, about kumbaya, but about getting towards the right direction, right? So, and having, so what we have seen is as we launched our cloud platform, we quadrupled our data users, right? And I think a lot of people actually, it's about make the right way, the easy way, right? I think that's kind of the philosophy. So everybody was struggling through getting to the right sorts of data, building this report, and there was no visibility. We were trying to solve the same problem 10 different times. Now with this cloud platform, we are able to have multiple business unit teams, solve the problem, and then we are using reusable architecture. So the cool thing about that is if one business unit solves a problem around accounts receivable or customer, attribution or something, right? We are able to now quickly deploy it to 9 other business units, and they can actually, no matter where the innovation comes from, it doesn't really have to come from the hub team. It can come from anywhere, and then you can actually reuse that innovation across the board, which is pretty cool. So we are able to now scale analytics because of that. We are able to quadruple our users. I would say, our data value has gone. So we track data value, which is attributed OI, which is approved by finance. So that has actually gone up, I would say 30 times than what it was 4 years ago. And so we are definitely doing the right things. And then ultimately, I think picking the right problems, right? So instead of convincing everybody that this is the right thing to do, we got to show it, right? And because seeing is believing. At the end of the day, nobody wants to do data or digital because, that's the right thing to do because we really want to see the business results. So it's really be purposeful. So finding the right problems that are the problem of the hour for the business, and it's sizable and meaningful, and we got the momentum behind it. So I'll give you a couple examples. And everybody was struggling through delivery, right, during COVID. So, supply chain problems and being able to deliver on time. You saw across the board how the supply chain disruptions happened in the last 2 years. We used that opportunity to drive, the leverage of the cloud platform we built to drive improvement in ship request to our customers, right? So that's a key metric. So we actually did a lot of work in not just the customer acquisition, to your point, trailer versus the whole movie, but you actually acquire a customer. How do you deliver products on time and deliver them on right quality? So we were able to actually achieve with analytics, one of the highest in TE's history, ship requests. It's in the mid 90s, number, which nobody has ever imagined we could do. And that is through COVID. So as we are coming out of COVID, our ship request is up, and a lot of it is, there is not one analytic, but multiple different analytics and process changes that have actually resulted in that. The second example I would give you is really the customer retention piece. So like every customer, every business faces customer, attrition that happens, right? So as that happens, how do we define churn? How do we predict churn? So we were able to predict who's going to churn, where do we have loss of engagement, and then why do we have it? And I think that second piece is really the key. Why are customers, getting disengaged or about to leave? And we were able to provide that information back to our customer support and sales teams. And we were able to actually prevent tens of millions of dollars of, loss of revenue from the bottom that actually misses every year. And those are two key examples that kind of resonate and internally and externally recognized for DE. And that kind of has moved. Now, have we addressed all of our technology debt? No, not yet, right? We still have a lot of issues, but I think now we have what we can call a future data home and a platform where we can continue to grow while we address the holdbacks, I would say, in our technology that we have had. So that's kind of been the approach.
Beautiful. So for the audience members, any questions based on the responses by Shawnna, Sha, and Abhi about what their challenges were and how they tried to solve? Because once we have those questions answered, we can very quickly move on to the challenges posed by the audience as they shared. Anyone, by show of hands, let me know if you'd like to ask specific questions from the panelists. All right. Maybe they got through, you gave all the responses that you wanted, right? So awesome. So let's quickly now do a rapid fire in the sense we'll ask the question that were posed, and the panelists would be requested to give short, crisp, but what I call as a Friday morning actionable takeaway type of answers. Okay. So first one came from Shravan. How do we scale the personalized experiences to engage the customers across channels seamlessly? Anyone, any of the panelists, please take it away.
I can go first. You start small. You pick one or two use cases and pilot it, learn from it, then go to the next one. The big bang absolutely never works. Having done this a few times. So start small and scale iteratively.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with Sha. I think for us, personalization can be so broad. And if you try eating the apple in one bite, he's absolutely right. I mean, you will fall flat. And so our first approach was, what is the low hanging fruit and what can we go get as quickly as we can that will drive the greatest impact and show the greatest result. And so, if we look at personalization across online, store, we went with online. We knew that was the area that we could really see big bang for our efforts and our endeavors, and it's been successful. So now we'll be able to spread that, propagate it across the enterprise.
All right, Cynthia, I believe you had a very detailed explanation of the challenge. If you could, in very crisp manner, just speak again and give a very crisp question, pose that question for the audience so they can give a crisp answer back.
Sure. The greatest challenge is in identifying or convincing the data owners that they do own the data and getting them to agree to ensure it's meeting current quality standards.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can probably tackle that a little bit. So the way we've addressed it, and I don't know if it's going to work for everybody or not, but this is a common challenge. And I think and everybody expects IT to provide the perfect data possible. And I think what I've probably, done I would say fairly good job in the company is really talking about not just you should fix your data and here is why you own it. I think we have talked about two things. One is providing a framework on how do you look at data quality and what is data governance, right? And we are here to help and support, right? But we can't solve it all, right? It's like a small, I would say SWAT unit that can come in and step in. It's not an army. The second one is really talk about challenges because the data is not fixed, right? And I think business context is really the most important thing here. Let's not talk about data. Let's talk about, because the data isn't perfect, what issues are we having? Either it's on the customer experience side or operating margin side, pricing, key levers that are very directly connected to the financial metrics, right, that we track as a company, right? And I think that, once the leaders have a common understanding of that, as we roll out our data governance process, we identify, we can do the data definitions piece, right? But we identify data owners for each data within each business unit. And from an IT perspective, I say, we are kind of really the plumbers, right? So we can do the plumbing, you can get in and get out, and we can actually even give you a filter, So it's like the label behind the drink. You can see how many calories and what are you drinking, but you feel the drink and you drink it, right? I think it's really not, the data doesn't necessarily belong and owned by the IT systems, but it really flows through the IT systems. We can give you an easy way to track the quality and measure the quality, and then tell you how it is trending over time. But it's your role to go address the quality by addressing those business processes. And if we can pick, there's a couple examples where we picked issues which were CEO level attention, and we know the data was causing it, or, in a couple areas where we had excessive trade and we did not have visibility. Once we figured out what the data quality issues were that were causing it, it got addressed very quickly because, it had direct impact on OI or a senior executive metric. It got addressed.
So I agree with everything, but I may have a slightly controversial sort of take on this. Sunlight is the best disinfectant in many ways. So making the issues on the one hand transparent, I think is important. That could be done in many, many ways. There could be dashboards or reports or whatever that says, hey, this data set has these issues or whatever. That tends to work to an extent. But I guess that's part of the, they still need to work on it. In addition to that, what we've done is we've built these from an IT perspective, or in our case, the data team, the central corporate data team, has built out these enterprise dashboards as an example for different business units. Right, there are data owners in the business units, but to make that data visible, we have dashboards that are built out. We call it the system metrics out. Now, what happens is, if there are issues in the data, that becomes immediately clear at the system metrics level, because the CEO of a particular hospital is going to say, well, that doesn't look good. I had 105% occupancy, but this dashboard says it's only 90%. So bringing that level of visibility, both at the low level, the nuts and bolts of these many issues were reported and not resolved over the last 2 years is helpful, but really elevating the visibility into that data at a much higher level from a user's perspective or the consumer's perspective, I think has the most impact, because not only then there is visibility and there is investment and focus and attention in terms of getting those issues fixed, because the people who are going to complain about those issues are going to be the leaders who are responsible for the teams that own that data as data owners. So I think that has, in my opinion, helped in my career.
So Cynthia, we have to move on, but did it give you some semblance of an idea on what you could be doing in your organization?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that I also came away with some ideas to do things a little bit differently. So I thank the panelists.
Absolutely. Thanks so much again for asking the question. Let's continue. So we have actually a question came. It's from Emory University, Peter Bach. He mentioned that they're facing similar challenges in collecting data from a wide range of separate schools and systems. A basic example is that schools will define faculty differently in each school. So basic faculty counts become problematic. On a broader scale, coming to an agreement on data definitions is our big issue. And the other challenge that he mentioned is that they do not have an integrated employee job applicant new hire listening strategy. So they can report on turnover, recruiting performance, applicant facts, but they still don't have they don't know the root causes of the results. Well, the good news, at least it's reported by Peter, is that they are starting on a listening strategy. So any specific tips, crisp tips, actionable tips for Peter?
Master data management comes to mind. I think that won't solve, that's not your ultimate cure-all, but at the minimum, you need to have that. And that's each domain. I have somewhat of a similar situation with provider data in a hospital environment. But I think the principles are somewhat similar. So have a master data management strategy as your foundation, and then you can start plugging in whether there is data that you buy from outside vendors, whichever way you can plug that in. But at the very least, you have to have an MDM solution in place.
All right. Peter, did you get what you needed?
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to hear about is actually strategies for listening to employees. What technologies would you recommend? I know there's a lot of kind of like word mining and comments mining, but like, what have you all, you're in the customer business. We're kind of more in the new hire, job applicant, student success business. So, any technologies or strategies for employee listening or customer listening is really what I'm talking about.
I mean, all the interactions we have, we have, call logging technology, as we get any interaction, any questions we get from our customers, we use software that can actually convert, voice to text. And then we are able to now, generate a lot of insights from that, not just the sentiment, but, think about all the responses we are able to give to customers. How can we synthesize? So we're starting to use more generative stuff actually today as we speak on how can we synthesize and make, the interactions a lot better, I would say. But, you got to understand as you think about listening to employees, what are the right channels in which you are talking to your employees? And then how do you capture the knowledge in those channels and synthesize that? That's kind of where I would start.
Okay. So now with Vijit, who had mentioned that they had the suppliers having they have to service multiple customers who have their own way of accepting the data from suppliers. So what do you do for a solution so that it allows a supplier to service all methods of product exchange that's happening between supplier and the customer?
APIs and wrappers. That's really what it is. It is not, it works all the time. It's been proven. So that's what I would do, and standardize API and wrappers and mapping.
So Vijit, go ahead.
Thanks, Abhi. I think one thing is, depending on the customer you're working with, they're very, what's the word? They're behind on the way that they accept data. So they don't have the capability, you can ask them, we want to create an API feed, but they don't have that acceptability. Instead, they want you to provide data like in an Excel sheet or provide it into a portal. So that's where we struggle sometimes. What's the best way to, come up with one solution that can service many, or how do you influence them to get towards a more advanced part of their journey?
Sorry, just real quick. I think that goes back to much like whether you're talking about your internal customer, your external customer, your vendors, your partners, et cetera. I think developing what the value prop is and sharing that to get the higher rate of adoption and engagement has certainly, that's very grassroots and very simplistic, I realize, but for us, that was most certainly where we've started. So Abhi, I'm sorry, please.
No, okay. There is an element of culture and the sort of the business dynamic. I don't know if you have the ability to influence the behavior on the other side, but the portal idea isn't necessarily bad in the sense that if you're able to create a single interface where people can slice and dice or create a view and download that data, that's especially in financial services where you have to provide statements and reports to your client base. That has definitely helped. Having a portal where people can self-service and format. Practically every bank site does it today, right? Your statements can be filtered in 20 different ways, and you can download it in multiple different formats. That if the API level route is not feasible, then I would recommend something like that.
Yeah, I think just having flexibility on how you provide the data, because not to your point, not everybody's going to be at the data maturity that you do have being able to accept it from an API. But the other thing you can do is, I think what Shawnna was talking about is, educating them what are the challenges? If they're not using an API, I'm sure there are challenges if they're using Excel, misinterpretation, wrong data, timeliness, integration, there is all kinds of issues with that. And then they cause business disruption one way or the other, right? So highlighting that and how API can provide a more seamless and almost real-time integration into data feeds. We get data from hundreds of our distributors from what's sold and what's the inventory level and who bought it and what part. And we have several million part numbers in DE. We make all these small parts, right? So we manage all that diversity and complexity and managing that point of sale data and then getting it standardized and mapped and understanding, okay, what's selling, where it's selling, and why. It required a lot of work, but it can be done.
All right.
Thanks, guys. That was helpful.
Thank you so much again, Rajit. One last question, Subrat Sahu. Data challenges impact analytics project outcomes. So how does a small consulting firm measure CX given the data challenges of clients?
I think getting really smart about what challenges to pick, right? I think if you go, I think as a company, if you are in that space, you really need to be very good at understanding and scanning through, okay, what is the data landscape of a customer look like, right? And then based on that, what all the possible solutions you could be providing, what are the right ones that that are feasible, right? And then steer that way, because you don't control data maturity at your customer, but you just need to have a skill of understanding based on what's available and the state in which they're in, what can they do to unlock value.
Yeah, I think there is a tendency in general to go really deep into some very, complex but very nice technology architecture that leads to it's a multi-year roadmap of implementation, a lot of dollars to be invested and so on. I think that usually doesn't go very far in the beginning, especially in a very constrained environment where you have a lot of problems and you have to prioritize. My approach would be to first of all keep things simple overall, articulated that we have a platform challenge, we have an access challenge or some such, right? And then break it down into smaller pieces. That's what anything else these days, break it down into smaller manageable pieces and go after it. Perhaps your first approach is to say, well, let's say you have 8 different tools doing the same thing. It saves you this much money. There's a business case right away to say start consolidating it, right? And then that then, I think Abhi said this too, that then allows you to articulate benefits up front. So those are keeping it simple, breaking it down, and picking the right ones that has immediate value. That would be one of the things I would do.
So what a great conversation today. Now the special thanks to our panelists, Abhi Seth, Shawnna DelHierro, and Sha Edathumparampil. Thank you so much for taking the time for answering questions and sharing your insights. And thank you so much, all of you who attended, asked a bunch of questions. Hopefully you got some good answers. And we would like to keep getting your feedback so we can keep doing these webinars and bring some good value to all people who attend. And thank you so much for Luminar, who have been our gracious sponsor who made this happen. Thank you so much again. I request everyone to please help and complete the feedback form so we learn and continue to improve. And this feedback form will pop up when we end this webinar. So thank you so much and have a lovely rest of the day ahead.